What's up, Copy Squad? It's your boy, Kyle Milligan, coming to you live from Boca Raton, Florida. And today I want to discuss the hardest thing for copywriters to do, which is often the least. And what I mean by that is like a super counterintuitive way to look at it, right? But I have a bunch of examples of things that really tie up copywriters, just different sorts of things where basically this is a mistake that I've made, I've seen other people make, and it comes down to basically learning how to do the least. I think one of the things that will be very crucial in this lesson is learning how the research process works and the value of the research process, but I'm not here to harp on that right now. I'm here to talk about doing the least because it's a very hard thing to do for copywriters. So the first thing I want to do is talk about my boy who is now a copy chief. I was just texting my man Rob Braddock a couple minutes ago. Taught him everything he knows. But anyway, he was a copywriter at Agora Financial, and we worked on one promo together called Trump bonus checks. This idea was his idea, and I had a couple months more experience than him at the time. And basically, he was like, "Hey, I got this idea. I know you've got some promos under your belt. Can you kind of help me out with like how to get started, how to get rolling?" And I remember the first night that we were hanging out together, the thing I told him, I said, "All right, the easiest way to start a front-end sales letter is with a simple pattern interrupt with a take a look at this line, all right? Take a look at this." And I said, all right, so he gave me all the information he had, and he had all like the headline and lead kind of imagined up. And I said, okay, let's take all this idea stuff and let's narrow it down to just one sentence to open our whole letter up. And it's gonna be the words, take a look at this, okay? So I want to show you really quick that line in action. So here's, I gotta move this screen over here so I can see it. So this is the promo, Trump bonus checks. It's kind of infamous now because it's a very successful promo for Agora Financial. And you'll see that the first line now is, "Dear proud American citizen, take a look at this monstrous stack of papers." And as simple as that line seems, that took us probably an hour, maybe two. Like, it got late. We were at the apartment I was staying in Baltimore after copy camp, working on this single line, take a look at this monstrous stack of papers. And it came from, I was like, all right, we're going to open it with this word to take a look at, right? And he wrote some stuff up and he showed it to me, and I was like, okay, cool. I see what you're doing here, but there was like a whole page of copy, you know, well-written copy, and it was intriguing and captivating and curiosity-driven, all that stuff. And I was like, but it doesn't say take a look at this anywhere. Like, it's a whole story, and sure, it sucks you in, but I need to get attention now. I need someone to stop and focus. I need their eyeballs to shrink and go, what is that? And so it was funny because this happened like 3 times. It was like, hey man, we need to start with take a look at this, right? And he's like, gotcha, going. And he'd write up some stuff and he'd come back and I'd be like, all right, cool. This doesn't say take a look at this. And he's like, yeah, but look, I showed him this, I showed him that. And I was like, all right, well, let's try again, but let's try take a look at this. All right, I wonder if he's going to kill me for sharing this story. But so then he goes back to his side of the table and he starts typing, and he brings back. And I was like, bro, it doesn't say take a look at this. We got to get it to say take a look at this so we can get their attention right away. Again, solid copy, very intriguing, story-driven stuff. And I was like, what we got to do is take a look at this. All right, and I think it was like a learning experience for him and for me. For me, I learned that I must be a real pain for my copy chief at the time because I was in the same boat where my copy chief would tell me, just go do this. And I would try to just go do that. And then it wouldn't, like, I'd come back and he'd be like, why didn't you do that thing? And I was like, no, I did what you told me. He's like, no, I told you to do this. And it's so crazy because I thought I was doing exactly what he was saying. And in the same instance, when me and Rob wrote this very first line of this very famous promo now, don't call it very famous, call it very successful, how about that? This very successful promo, it started just the same way. And for Rob, I think that was a light bulb moment as well, where it's like, oh, take a look at this. Like, and it was such a funny thing because the hardest thing to do, I think, in copywriting is to do the very least. I think a lot of times we want to overwrite. We want to tell a big story, and we want to have all this big idea larger than life and this and that. And I think at the end of the day, what works is simplicity. Simplicity, and every single word matters, and it's like super short and to the point. So some of the things that I thought about while I was thinking about this idea was like this old quote was, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. And I think that's one of the issues with a lot of copywriters is they want to do too much, right? And I think the hardest thing to do for us is the least. We call it killing your darlings sometimes, basically chopping out entire blocks of copy that just teach or educate and they're not selling, So I think that's one thing I wanted to point at. And the other thing I want to talk about is the research process again. So in order to finish the sentence, take a look at this blank, you have to do research because you have to know exactly where it's going. So once we had that line, take a look at this monster stack of papers. The monster stack of papers, we had to figure out what we were going to look at. What are we going to take a look at? But in order to understand what we want people to take a look at, we need to understand what the benefit is we're going to give them. So again, this comes back to research, right? The research does the writing for you. So take a look at this monster stack of papers. Buried inside this 500-page legal document signed into law by President Trump himself hides a special loophole that any American can take advantage of, giving them a shot at a bunch of money, right? So again, it comes back to that research. And the hardest part was we don't want to tell a big story. We want to do the research that tells us you need to focus their vision right away on something, right? Get their attention, a pattern interrupt. And then immediately tell them why they're looking at it. That means the benefit. And guess what? Before we could write any of this, and that's what made this take so long, this whole process, is we had to know these numbers. We had to know what was this. Basically, this is tax law, right? This is a giant tax law, and it opens up a window that you can make some money, right? And you have to do all that research beforehand. You have to know exactly where you're going with it before you can tell them to take a look at anything, right? So as simple as it sounds to tell somebody, just write, take a look at this, and then put something there. It can be an impossibly long and arduous task to kind of figure out what that thing is they're looking at, why they're looking at, where the benefit is in there, and how you make that intriguing, right? So you'll also note that whenever we figured out what we told them to look at, this monstrous stack of papers, we did a little bit of fascinations, okay, a little bit of teasing, buried in a 500-page legal document signed into law by President Trump himself. Okay, so when you see, those are specifics. So if you've seen any of my videos about how to write good bullets, the way to write a good bullet is to basically get the audience wondering how, and then be weirdly specific about the details so that they feel like it's real, or at least it draws more intrigue and curiosity. So one of the things that we did here, 500-page legal document, signed into law by President Trump. Okay, well, what's this legal document? What did President Trump do? I'm interested in Trump because he's in the news left and right, and it's always something crazy happening with that guy, right? So that's a super intriguing sort of way to approach it. And again, hope my man Rob don't kill me by this. He's now a copy chief at another imprint, or not imprint, but another company, right? He's moved up, and he's doing big things right now. But it's funny because that origin story, I'll always love that origin story because it was hey man, right? Take a look at, and it was one of those things. I could see him I am doing what you're saying. And I'm no, you're not doing what I'm saying. He's I am doing what you're saying, and it was that back and forth. It was it's a huge learning experience for him, for me, and I feel like that was a breakthrough for both of us to realize this copywriting thing it's the hardest part is not overwriting, not doing too much, not trying to be too clever, too creative. I say all the time, I'm not very creative or clever. Everything that I do comes from the research. If you look at these first couple lines, there is nothing special about mine or Rob's writing within these first couple lines. It is a monster stack of papers. It is 500 pages. It was signed into law by President Trump. It does have what we label a loophole in the tax code, and these are real examples of people making money, right? And I know a lot of people want to use their writing prowess and their skills and their cleverness and get crazy with it, but really it's just the research. We just took one piece of research and then put another one and another one and another one. And the hardest part, I think, for the copywriting game is to simply just do the least. I think it carries through, not just this pattern interrupt example is one, but it also carries through at other levels of the copy when we're talking about mechanisms, right? You don't want to have 45 mechanisms, right? You don't want to have 45 terms with quotations around them where the reader's going to be well, this is all BS. This doesn't make any sense. You quotate everything. You're sounding really scammy, right? You gotta have one mechanism. You gotta have one big catalyst that makes all this happen, and you gotta tell one story, right? So there can be a lot of little stories and case studies and stuff that support your bigger story, but at the end of the day, we need to be talking about a big story, one single big story. And for this particular promo, we have, Trump bonus checks. Trump did a thing and now you can get paid. That's our big story in this promo. But every other little story that we tell within that bigger context all supports this idea that Trump did a thing, now you get paid. And if it didn't support that, we had to cut it out. Me and Rob put together a research document that's, I don't know, hell, it could have been it was somewhere between 80, it could have been between anywhere from 60 to 90 pages. I can't even remember now. That's a big gap, right? 60 to 90. But I know it was way, way, way up there between all the stuff that we put in there. And if it was even stuff that looked super interesting, that we thought was super cool and intriguing, if it didn't support that story, that single story, we couldn't put it in there. And I know the old, well, I say the old thing, I don't even know what it is, but I think it's do 8 times the research you need, and that's crazy because that means a lot of things that you think are really neat, really cool and intriguing will not make it into your sales letter. And again, challenge as a copywriter is to do the least. Comes back to that line. If I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. Learning how to chop things that don't directly support your one mechanism, your one catalyst, your one story that you're, look at me doing 1, 2, 3, your one mechanism, your one catalyst, your one story that you're trying to tell, right? And I saw it again at the Agora open house. We had a couple people trying to get a job at Agora Financial, and we invited them in, and we gave them some pretty basic writing assignments. And I was talking to one, and I was like, so here we talked after or something like that. I know you had this job or whatever, or you had this task. I was like, how did that go? Did you write that? And they're like, no, I wrote all this. And I was like, oh no, you shouldn't have wrote all this because your job was to write that very simple thing. And I understand because I've seen it, I've done it myself. I've frustrated my copy chief to no end. I've seen other writers do it who are very good and talented, who have gone on to become copy chiefs at other companies. So it's that is, it's an understated thing that it's very difficult to achieve that. So if you want help on learning how to basically figure out a way to do all the things I'm talking about, tell one story, have one mechanism, have one catalyst, and have it all cohesive and run together, how to do the research, that website right behind me, kylethewriter.com/process. I have a whole system, like a program, a video series, 6 hours, of basically you virtually shadow me, put together a sales letter. I walk you step by step through the process of how we build sales letters like this. The sales letter that I will be using for this program is going to be the sales letter I use for my book. And that sales letter is at kylethewriter.com/book. And I'll show you how I built that, how I gathered the proof, how I had one cohesive story that I was telling, how I had one mechanism that solves all of the reader's problems, and how I was able to get research from outside the book. I don't just tell you what's in the book, of course, because then you wouldn't buy the book. I had to find all this research from out there in the world that sells the book. So that's available at kylethewriter.com/process. So Rob says, I hate you so much right now, this never happened. Okay, it happened. Okay, so Rob was watching. It took every ounce of self-control not to flip the table over. Dude, oh man, that's one of my favorite stories. My favorite, the bad story from my origin story was my copy chief told me I was the worst copywriter he had ever read in his life when my first draft of Hottest IPO went across his desk. So that's my origin story. I'll have a little reveal there for you. But no, man, it's so cool and crazy because I think that's one of those things, the hardest part to do is the least, is to not to overdo it. I should have tagged Rob in this, man, but I'm glad I got to see it. So yeah, if you want more help on figuring out a process that works for you, I offer mine here as a product, kylethewriter.com/process. I don't see any questions or anything coming through. I'll hang out for just one more minute. Take a look at this. One story, one promise, one catalyst. If I had more time, I'd have written a shorter letter. Yeah, man. I think it was John Ford who said at our copy camp, he said, simple writing is easy to read, hard to write. It is really difficult to take all those things that you want to write, all that writing prowess and that talent or just passion you have for writing, and chop it all out to just the bare facts that build the intrigue, that sell the product, that bring about new, easy, safe, and big. And at the end of the day, it comes back to that research and knowing exactly where your letter's going before you even sit down to write a single word. All right? So that's all I got for you today, Copy Squad. I hope this was informative. And had to put my man Rob on the hot seat. I probably should have called and asked if that was okay, but he seems to be a good sport about it. All right, that's it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Check out kylethewriter.com/process. Oh, no, I should tell you too. So that's 60% off through May 18th. After May 18th, I'm closing the cart, not accepting anyone else. This is for a beta group. I'm hoping to get some feedback and improve it and then charge way more later. So thanks again. Peace out. Copy Squad.